I look like a human band-aid with this light and shirt. So I will try to speak as little Japanese as possible. I'm sure you're tired of vocal coaches speaking in Japanese. So many words that yet say so little, right? So I'm trying to promote the opposite actually. I've started trying to do TikToks. Train myself to simplify things even further, hopefully. It's like, oh, see all these things? It's just M2. So the first thing I've learned, which is really interesting, is that I don't ever get female students. And in the beginning I thought maybe male singers looked for male teachers. Surely it's a good idea to do so. I could recommend that because a lot of female singers are like natural singers, and a lot of male singers that I help need help with the vocal break. And when you get a female teacher that never had to experience how to fix that, they won't be able to help you. Of course, that's just my experience. So in the beginning I thought maybe I'm not getting female students because of this, but then it hit me fully. They just don't need this. I noticed female singers almost exclusively sing in M2. That is a little bit of an exaggeration. I'm not being too technical with that. But think about this. Have you ever heard a female singer going into a low, but it's also like a middle register note, and they get so breathy so easily? Do you notice like the volume of their M1 is so low and soft? It's more likely for them to take advice on breath support and lessons to improve the low register. But men will never have that. They usually just have an effortless, natural low register. So I can tell a male student, hey, listen, the only reason that you think your mixed voice is weak is because you're comparing it to such an overdeveloped chest voice or M1. But because female singers don't have that usually, when they switch into mixed voice falsetto M2, they don't think it's a bad voice or like something just went wrong. So because their true laryngeal mechanisms are more balanced, they get closer to the experience of just having one unified vocal register a lot more easily, which is probably why they can make up all these terms in TikTok and stuff like mixed belt and heady mixed belt, because they have such good control of their true registers that they, think about those terms and are like using those as adjectives to describe different levels of intensity. But when a male singer who usually does not have a unified voice up to the tenor range hears that and they think they don't have to switch, you want to kill yourself. So I really get that, which is why I'm advocating for this framework, no matter what. The second thing I notice is no one knows what the hell you're talking about. If you bring up this framework in real life, you'll be looked at like you're crazy. I had to Google the M1 and M2 scientific images on Google Images today, and I saw that one of the pictures had a crazy singing, my previous channel, watermark, so it caught my attention. And I went and it was a Reddit post, and the level of awareness about this framework is so bad that they saw this image and one of the comments said like it was stupid because whoever posted it, I did, was kind of, stupid, implying that he didn't say that textually, because like look at all the words they're using, right? Pointing at all the words under their laryngeal mechanisms, totally missing the point that the graph should be read the other way around. It's trying to exemplify how all those words could be just called that laryngeal mechanism. But that's how bad the general read was. And a long time ago, even before my first course, my smartest and best singing teacher could not comprehend what I was referencing. And for a few classes, I left even more confused than before reading the articles on the internet, until one day I was like, okay, so he's not going to listen to me. I mean, I'm just a student, right? And he's a professional opera singer. But meditating on the subject before a class, I figured maybe if I just ask him to sing an operatic tenor high C from the M2 laryngeal mechanism, and he could demonstrate that, I could conclude on my own mind what's really going on. But they never really understood it either. I just took mental notes. So if you're using this on your singing, you're in the top, I don't even want to say 1%, I think it's 0.1. Use it for your benefit, sure, but don't bring it up. Probably they will look at you like you're crazy. Just send them my TikToks. At the very worst, they'd be like, oh, that guy is crazy. And you won't take the hit. In fact, I was invited to rehearse 2 songs by my first singing teacher, a soprano who could never help me figure out my mixed voice issues. And there were other students and we were warming up. And when the warm-up finished, I said, we didn't do a mixed voice warm-up, you know? And they all went like, oh yeah, you're right. I wasn't saying it to be a smartass. I was actually hoping that they would make a warm-up where I could increase the intensity of my M2, but they didn't. So I was in fact complaining for real because I knew that I had to sing songs with a really difficult mixed voice. B flat 4, B4. So I was hoping to warm up like the type of warm-ups that I do, which is growing from your M2, the weakest one, into a really powerful mixed voice. So I said that, and obviously no one went like, oh, mixed voice doesn't exist. Everyone agreed in that sense, but then they didn't do anything either. So I actually kind of didn't sing my song all that well. In fact, the experience reminded me why I hate warm-ups so much, because the warm-up contemplated going up, like pushing our M1 to its limit, and then maybe doing like some falsettos above that. Sort of saying like, oh, you're not going to use those anyway, right? No, it's like the foundation of my technique now. And the worst thing might be that I noticed that some of the female students were using mixed voice, and I noticed because some of them were shy, so when they went for a note, I could tell that its origin was in falsetto, and they just didn't grow it enough for that particular note because they were being shy. So I could take notes and be like, okay, so that's mixed voice, and they're doing mixed voice. They just might think it's belting again. They're not analyzing it because of course the teacher doesn't know about this. So a total mindfuck. But the female students did warm up their M2 like so much. Like the main focus of the warm-ups was M2, and the main focus of the warm-up for males, which were just 2 of us, was just M1. So then my falsetto was just like totally asleep and I couldn't do mixed voice. And I told her like we should have done a mixed voice warm-up. And they're like, yeah, I guess. And like not even... And the last thing I've learned and noticed is that I'm not doing a good enough of a job at conveying how loud falsetto can be. And I need to find a better, more interesting way of doing that over the internet, because there's no secret recipe other than my advanced course, because its only purpose is to increase volume / air, which are synonymous, and true mixed voice is actually just an insanely loud falsetto. At least that is a very smart way to put it, because you could be more technical and say it's a very compressed falsetto, but that already confuses the living fuck out of people. They think compression is something else because they've seen other vocal coaches talk about compression in a weird way, which I disagree with. So it is a very loud falsetto, which means it has a lot of air, which means you can compress that air eventually for a thicker timbre. You see, it's like 4 fucking things, but essentially it needs to be insanely loud first. So for example, my instant mixed voice course, it's trying to make people realize how loud it can be, but sometimes people look at it and they get back to me with the results, and I can tell their demonstrations are not loud. So even though I'm grabbing like the toilet paper roll and some things you might have seen, so you unleash that loudness, I must admit, I must find a better way to communicate loudness. Of course, I've talked about how it's nearly impossible with compressors, microphones, the internet. That is the third thing, how much people underestimate how freaking loud it can be. Because if you hear my mixed voice and it sounds convincing to you in the sense that it sounds chesty, before it could sound chesty, it had to sound extremely loud. So then that loudness could be compressed into a chesty timbre that is now convincing you that it's chesty. But see, you can't skip the being fucking insanely loud step, because what would you be compressing? You need that lot of air, that lot of volume. So I need to think of funny ways of communicating volume, so that should be quite exciting. But yeah, the third one being how much they underestimate it. Even if they're hearing me say how loud it can be, they still, you know, it's like they can get to be a very loudish, like a loudish Mickey Mouse, but honestly it's like 20 times louder than M1. Your chest voice, what can I say? Maybe I'm exaggerating a little for educational purposes, but honestly, at least 10 times louder. At least 10 times louder than the highest M1 I could ever control in a pretty way, you know? With stableness. Is that a fucking word? Being stable? Stability? So now I've said it without exaggerating. 20 was exaggerated and 10 is the truth. So now you know why my program works so well, because in the last one, the advanced one, figure out how to make you grow your M2 using your favorite songs. So it's sort of captivating and enticing to practice, but it's also science-based still, and it's really like it cuts to the chase, you could say, because we narrowed down everything to its origin. It's like mixed voice, it's falsetto at its core, great, that is the foundation of the academy, and now we keep going. It's like, and it's just falsetto with a shit ton of air. So how do we increase that air as fast as possible, and using your favorite songs in this case? It's really fucking genius. So I think you should go if you never did. M2.academy, and thank you for watching me speak Japanese.